What's up? How's it going? Than Brown here with you on the Endgame. You are watching Rock One. And look at this. We got new graphics, everybody. Look at the Endgame right there. People behind the scenes working hard. I don't even know who gets credit for that, but that's an awesome graphic. I'm pretty fired up about that. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie. When the technology works out great, you got to give some credit here. So excited to hear it on Monday, September the 22nd. Also excited because I had the weekend off. No Bills game on Sunday, so that meant time with the family, time hanging out, watching football, not having to work football. It's a great thing. Trust me on that. I had a great time this weekend. Hope you guys did too. Got a lot to get to today. A lot of Bill stuff for sure. Want to start with, the Bills and when they might actually lock up the AFC East. We'll get into that. I know some people worried about jinxing. I don't care about jinxes. We're going to talk about it. Jackson Hawes, Deion Walker, a couple big-time rookies who are making plays. Explore that a little bit. Tom Brady's been in the news. Conflict of interest? I don't really think so. I'll explain why a little later on in the show. And, of course, we'll talk about what are the crazy things that myself and probably Rachel Liebert saw over the weekend with, you see this? So we'll get into that a little later on in the show. But like I said, look, we're going to start with the Bills because that's what we do around here. And I got a question on X over the weekend. After the games were over I should give credit to the person that gave me the question, but either way, the question was, when do you think the Bills will clinch the AFC East based on what we've seen the first 3 weeks? And I thought, you know what? That is a fascinating little thing to explore. You know, I'm a guy who I really love the NFL tiebreakers and getting into, well, this team needs to beat this team. And then if that doesn't happen, you got to go to the division tiebreaker, and then it's common games and then it's conference record. I love diving into that stuff. So usually I can't, explore that fun aspect of the NFL season until like Thanksgiving, but that gave me an opportunity, that question, to do it today. So I looked into when might the Bills reasonably clinch the division, because, and yeah, look, is it too early to be, counting chickens and cart before the horse, all that stuff? Sure. But I don't believe in jinxes. I don't care if the Bills win or lose. I thought it was a fun question, so I was diving in. And mathematically, if the Bills were to go 9-0, they could clinch the division November 9th, theoretically, mathematically, if they win their first 9 games and the Patriots, Jets, and Dolphins don't win any games except for Miami over the Jets this Monday night. So that's actually a possibility to clinch the division November 9th. That ain't going to happen. The other AFC East teams are not good. They ain't that bad. All right. So when might the Bills reasonably clinch? Well, right now I'm going to go with November 30th, which is week 13, which is still absolutely absurd for the NFL. 12 games into a season, we should not be talking about a team clinching a division. But look, the thing is, the Bills' schedule is just not hard. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in a minute. But let's just say the Bills through 12 games, and that game is at Pittsburgh on a Sunday, November the 30th. This is the Sunday after Thanksgiving. If the Bills are 11-1 then, which is optimistic for sure, but not crazy, not even close to crazy based on how comically easy this Bills schedule is looking right now. If Buffalo's 11-1, well then other teams in the division have to have no more than 6 losses to even begin talking about a tiebreaker. And since the Jets and Dolphins are both 0-3 already, those two teams have to go 6-3 over their next 9 games, again, to even be in a discussion about a tiebreaker if Buffalo wins 11 of their first 12. And the Dolphins play the Bills again in the next 9 games. So unless Miami wins that game, and you know what, they put up a pretty decent fight in Buffalo, and that game will be in Miami. So I don't want to totally put it past them, but let's say the Bills win that game. Well, then the Dolphins have to have 5 losses, because at 6, they would have already been swept by Buffalo, and Buffalo would have the tiebreaker. So that means if the Dolphins lose to Buffalo, they have to go 6-2 in their other 8 games to even have a discussion. And again, like I said, it wouldn't even be 6-2 because that would be their 6th loss already. So they got to go 7-1. So if Miami loses to Buffalo and the Bills are 11-1, Miami has to be 7-1 to even talk about this. Okay. The reason, and then the Jets will leave alone. They don't look like a team that can win many games. So going 6-3 in their other 9, not even worth the conversation. The team that will probably extend Buffalo's clinching date is probably the Patriots. A, because they're the one team that already has a win. But B, you want to talk about comically easy. New England's schedule is about to get really soft. I mean, just Charmin soft over the next month or so. Their next 5 games, not this weekend, but next weekend, they got to come to Buffalo. Other than that, the Patriots play Tennessee, Carolina, Cleveland, and New Orleans. Not in that order. It's a different order. Don't worry about that. Those 4 games are all eminently winnable. I know Carolina just pounded Atlanta. They certainly have a pulse. Take them seriously. But they're easily a team that a Mike Vrabel coach, Drake May quarterback team could handle. Tennessee hasn't looked like they can figure out anything with a rookie quarterback yet. And that's still going to be a first half of the season game. So, advantage New England with some experience there. I know Cleveland just beat Green Bay, so you can't dismiss them. But I still think May versus Flacco is still advantage Patriots. And then the Saints are winless. And look, they've looked frisky at home. And I think that New England game against New Orleans is in New Orleans. But they were expected to be the worst team in the NFL coming in. And so far, there really isn't much that says otherwise. So, look, going back to when Buffalo could clinch, right? Let's say the Patriots win 2 of those 4 and lose to the Bills, right? Which might be on the low side. I don't think New England's going to sweep all 4 of those. I think they'll lose at least one of them. But the Patriots haven't looked great, to begin the season either. If they lose 2 of those, okay, they're 1-2 right now. That means you go 2-3 over the next 5. Now you're talking about 3-5. Now New England has to win at least 2 of their next 3. We're not going to keep the math going. If they're 3-5, that's 8 games. They got to win 2 of their next 4 to even be in the tiebreaker discussion with the Bills. And after this 5-game softie schedule, the Patriots do have to play Atlanta and Tampa, which are not great teams. Tampa might be, but harder. So getting the Patriots to 4-7, to 7 losses before the Bills get to game number 13 is what we're talking about for Buffalo to clinch. This is easier for me to do, not theoretically. Let me see the schedule here. So if the Bills are 11-1 through 12 games, we've already dismissed the Jets. We already know how to easily dismiss Miami. That looks like a very likely scenario. Like I said, the team that's going to be in the way is probably going to be the Patriots, in part because of the really soft schedule they have coming up here. Let's see what we got. Because New England doesn't play Baltimore like the very end of the season. So after the easy 5 games, it's Atlanta, Tampa, the Jets, Cincinnati, and the Giants. Forget the Giants game. That's after the Bills' 12th game. So if they're 3-5 by splitting the easy games, they follow that up with Atlanta, Tampa, the Jets, and Cincy. You got to win 3 of those 4 to have less than 7 losses when the Bills get to 11-1. Do you really think the Patriots right now are going to win 3 of Atlanta, Tampa, the Jets, and Cincinnati? I could see them winning 2. Maybe they win 3. But the other part of this is how much do you buy, or how much do I buy, New England at 1-2? Losing at home to Pittsburgh, beating the Dolphins on the road. The Dolphins are 0-3, probably better than they look. They've played 2 decent games since that Colts disaster to open the season, but they're not very good. And they lost to the Raiders at home to open the season, who are okay. So unless you think New England, because they actually don't have their bye till week 14, so they're going to play 12 games before the Bills play their 12th game. Unless you think New England in their next 12, or excuse me, their next 9, can go 5-4, which is doable. But if they're anything worse than 5-4 over the next 9 games, we've already dismissed Miami because they have to go 7-1 to be able to hang with the Bills in week 13, assuming they lose their other game to Buffalo and Miami. The Jets have to go 6-3. I don't know if they'll win 6 games all year. So if those are the 3 things that have to happen for the Bills not to be able to clinch at 11-1. So this is why I think November 30th might be the day. And when you look to the Bills' schedule, look at what the Bills have on their schedule right now. We knew the Bills' schedule was easy coming into the season. Well, Kansas City looks probably worse than we expected. Buffalo's already passed the Baltimore game. They won that one. Philly's good. Tampa might be the only team on the Bills' schedule where you think that team's significantly better than I expected, or better to a degree. But one of the advantages the Bills had with their schedule coming into the season was that all their hard games were at home. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Philly, Kansas City. Well, Cincinnati's lost their quarterback. That game is not nearly as troublesome. That's still a home game. You might replace Cincinnati on your hard games list with Tampa. Guess what? The Bucs are coming to Orchard Park too. So the Bills' rest of schedule, Tampa is now probably a top 3 most difficult opponent remaining on the Bills' schedule with 13, 14 games to go. Here are the road teams. Listen to this. The Bills have, 2 home games, 1 road game. So they've got 7 road games left, okay? Their 7 road teams, road opponents, are right now a combined 6-15. There's 1 team left the Bills have to play on the road who currently is over 500, and that's Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everyone else the Bills have left are under 500 teams. The Texans, who I think we went into the season thinking might be the Bills' toughest road opponent, is 0-3 and can't score no matter what kind of advantages you might give them. Their offense might be the worst remaining on the schedule for the Bills in terms of road teams. So when we think about when the Bills could clinch or what's going to happen, I think the bigger scenario, obviously, with the Bills is, can they get the 1 seed? It has never been laid out easier. There has never been a better opportunity. There's never been a more open red carpet for Buffalo to land on a 1 seed. When your 3 hardest games include the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and due respect to Baker Mayfield, who is playing out of his mind, he's been fantastic. They're going to be a pain in the neck, but they got to come up to Buffalo. Kansas City's got to come to Buffalo. Philly's got to come to Buffalo. When your 3 hardest games are all at home, when they don't include Detroit or the Chargers or a team that you really might be threatened by, and your toughest road game right now is arguably the Steelers? I mean, how do the Bills not win at least 14 games, barring some ridiculous injury? And, if you really want to play the game in here, we can get into how many wins they might need to actually secure a 1 seed. It may not even be that many, because you look at the teams that you'd be threatened by, the Chargers, and I think the Ravens would be at the top of the list, even though the Bills have a tiebreaker over the Ravens. Their schedules are brutal. Those 2 teams have to go through so many tough games. I mean, the Chargers division is a pain in the neck. The Ravens, the Bengals are not a problem, but the Steelers may be more of one. Both those teams have so many tough games left that even if the Bills had lost to Baltimore in week 1, I would probably still sit here today and tell you that I think the Bills have a pretty decent chance to be the 1 seed, to just win more games than Baltimore, even without the tiebreaker. And then thanks to that ridiculous comeback in the opener, the Bills don't even have to go down that road. So Buffalo is in fantastic shape to get to a 1 seed. They could be celebrating. My prediction is right now, this isn't just a possibility. Like, if you wanted me to lay money on a week that I think the Bills are going to clinch the division, I think it'll be a week before December. Technically during December, because that week, the Monday night game is December 1st. But regardless, I think the Bills can clinch the division reasonably before the start of December. And this is a credit to who the Bills are, too. They've looked every bit the part we thought they would through 3 weeks. Not everybody in the league has. I mean, Green Bay was great for 2 games. You got to really question where they are at right now after blowing that game in Cleveland. So the Bills haven't done any of that left. And look, I don't think we're not going to talk about 17-0 on this show, because this is still the NFL, as the Browns proved yesterday. There are still hurdles the Bills are going to have to clear. There are still things that are going to go wrong. But the Bills have everything that they would have ever wanted sitting there in front of them through 3 weeks to end up as the 1 seed. Like, outside of a really weird situation injury-wise, if we get to the end of the season and the Bills are not the 1 seed, I think we'll be talking about concern about whether or not this Bills team can actually make it all the way through the playoffs to a Super Bowl. Like, this team needs to be the 1 seed the way it's set up for them right now, separate of injuries. I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more as we go on through the season here. All right, I want to talk about a couple rookies that have been impressive in different ways. I'm going to start with Deion Walker. And the thing with Deion Walker, when the Bills drafted him, we brought him to camp. The big story with Deion Walker was, oh my, look how big he is. Isn't he just like hilariously big? Like, isn't it funny? Like, tell me a big thing about him. That was the question in camp. He's really big, right? You're asking other guys, how big is Deion Walker? Like, You see how big he is? Tell me how big he is. That was pretty much the line of questioning about Deion Walker in camp. And I think what we've seen through 3 games and a preseason, for whatever that's worth, is that Deion Walker is much more than just a big guy. But separate of that, the other point I want to make here is just being big is not enough in this league. You know, you can't just show up and be a big guy. You know, Deion Walker's 6'7", 331. I mean, the thing about the NFL is that it kind of negates some of these natural talent, like the God-given stuff that you have that makes you great in high school and college. Yeah, it helps in the NFL, but you have to find a different level. Like watching Deion Walker on film when he was at Kentucky, there were multiple plays where you just laughed because he was bigger than everybody else. And he acted that way and played that way. You can't do that in the NFL. In the NFL, not only is everybody bigger and stronger, but the guys who last there, they know how to handle you if you're a bigger and stronger player. Like, even though Deion Walker is a monster at 6'7", 331, professional NFL offensive linemen know how to use that extra height, get underneath you, and move you around, which I think is one of the reasons why he's having so much trouble against the run so far. You know, professionals, guys who are experienced, seasoned, who this has been their lives for the last, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is, they know how to make use of what might be a perceived weakness or a perceived disadvantage. So you can't just show up to the NFL and be big. You know, the idea that Deion Walker was just going to walk in at 6'7", 331 and suddenly, simply by being large, change the Bills' defense, I've come to the point that that's ridiculous. Maybe not ridiculous, but it is not a reasonable expectation. If you're going to play in the NFL, you need to be able to do more than just be a big dude. I mean, you look at the guys, think about the guys who are really good defensive tackle in the NFL. Like Ed Oliver for the Bills. He's not that big. Ed Oliver is 6'1", 287. Quinnen Williams for the Jets. Bills just saw him last week. 6'3", 303. Big guy, but not 6'7", 331. Nnamdi Madubuike from Baltimore, week 1. Great defensive tackle, 6'3", 305. These are certainly large human beings. I mean, they're, bigger than me and you. But by NFL standards, they're not ridiculously large. I mean, the best defensive tackle we've seen over the last few years, Aaron Donald, was 6'1", 280. I mean, by NFL defensive tackle standards, that's tiny. So when going forward, I have kind of resolved that someone who is a monster offensive lineman or defensive lineman, I am not going to just sit there and say, well, he's really big, he's going to work in the NFL. Because it takes a whole lot more than that. Now, there are spots in positions where you can be really big and it can be effective. Like if you're a receiver who's 6'5", going up against a corner who's 5'8". That's a situation where the sheer size can make a difference. Or if you're like a position up. So if you're an offensive lineman, or let me put it this way, if you're a defensive end being blocked by a tight end, you simply have, in many cases, a size advantage. An offensive lineman blocking a linebacker or a safety, simply by sheer position, you have a size advantage. But offensive line, defensive line, you got to have more than just being a big guy. And here's the thing with Walker, he has more. This guy has made plays already in ways that are not simply about being 6'7", 331. He is an athlete out there. Like, not even an athlete for his size. He is a good athlete on the field. And this is where the Bills can make use of him. You saw him helping to force the interception at the end of the Dolphins game. It wasn't a great block by the Dolphins offensive lineman, but Walker, with his athleticism, was able to make Miami pay for that mistake and was right into the backfield, got long, and yeah, in that case, used his sheer size to probably get in the way of Tua's throw, but you don't need to be 6'7" to block that. You just need to win your block. A 6'2", 6'3" guy is probably going to be just as much a pain in the neck to Tua if he wins his block that easily, and that's the point. For Deion Walker to be effective in the NFL, he's got to win with technique, athleticism. He's got to be a good football player. He can't just be big. And so far, we've seen, like I said, multiple signs of Deion Walker being an athletic football player. The concern is he was brought in kind of because he was a big guy that could help against the run. We haven't seen that yet because in that area, his technique is not good enough. Even the run stops he had against Miami, the good run defense plays, were plays where the ball wasn't coming right at him necessarily, but he was able to use athleticism to get down the line of scrimmage and make a play. Now, there were a couple where he was able to win his block and cause a problem at the point of attack. But for the most part, Deion Walker's been better rushing the passer and moving laterally. So I think we need to change what we expected of Deion Walker. He's not going to just be a big dude that you're going to plant in the middle of the defensive line and expect him to be an obstacle for teams to have to deal with. He's an athlete that can cause problems by making plays like any other defensive tackle. And being a little bigger will help, but it is not even the majority of what's going to make him good. And if he doesn't improve the technique part of it, he's going to continue to not be a great run defender. And the Bills, I think, need him to develop there because right now the run defense remains a bit of a question. So, like a lot of people, when I saw Deion Walker coming in from college, I figured he would just be a monster and be so big it wouldn't matter. And I've been reminded, and I'm almost kicking myself for not remembering this in the first place, but in the NFL, I don't care how big you are, these guys know how to deal with that. And Deion Walker's got to know how to combat it, how to counter all that stuff. And there's been enough about his start to the season that I'm very encouraged. But it's not going to be simply about how big of a guy he is. Speaking of big guys on the line of scrimmage, the other rookie I want to talk about is Jackson Hawes. And I wonder if people out there are already kind of tired of the football nerds saying, look at the blocking tight end. He's so awesome. To be honest, I'm one of those guys. Like when I watch Bills film, Jackson Hawes is my favorite guy to watch. He's so good. He is so strong and just knows how to be effective as a blocker. There were a couple different plays early in that game against the Dolphins where he just got to Bradley Chubb and turned him whatever direction he wanted Chubb to go to shield a runner. He had another play in that game where he got downfield, the long sweep that James Cook hit in the, early second quarter, I think it was. Hawes has got a combo block with Deion Dawkins. And what a lot of the times, whether it's an offensive lineman or a tight end will do, when you're doubling on a guy, what you kind of want to do is take that guy and push him into a spot so that the blocker next to you has a better angle, has more leverage. And then once that happens, you can go on and find somebody else. Well, on this block, Hawes does that to perfection. I don't remember who the defensive end was. I think it was Bradley Chubb again. Regardless, he's doubled with Deion Dawkins, gets enough push on this defensive end that Dawkins now has the leverage to take care of that player on his own, and then turns upfield and finds either a defensive back or a linebacker and just plows the guy. And this is where James Cook exploded for 26 yards. James Cook's best run of the game. And then on top of that, on top of being the good blocker, the blocking tight end, finger quotes, is yet to go a game without having a catch. So he's been pretty good at that end too. I mean, better than expected. And look, yeah, the catch against the Jets was just a check down, no big deal. The one against Miami for the touchdown, sure, you need to be aware that Josh Allen's going to let that ball go at any time, but there's really no one who's going to impact the catch from a defensive point of view. It's a flip. It wasn't the hardest play. The one he made, this catch right here against the Ravens, that's a legit catch. That was taking a hit. He actually bobbled the ball a little bit, held on at the goal line in a spot where the Bills were trailing to set up the touchdown that got him within 2. So you talk about different draft picks that Brandon Beane has hit on late in drafts, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford. Jackson Hawes has a very good chance to be amongst that group, on the Mount Rushmore, if you will, of Brandon Beane day 3 finds. And I know he's not an every down player like Benford or Milano. He probably won't be an all-pro like Milano, although, they do have the Protector of the Year award. Maybe they'll have the Blocking Tight End of the Year award at some point. If they do, this dude's going to be a shoo-in to win at some point. But what he has contributed to this offense, what he is able to seal off, to open up as a backside blocker at a level that Dalton Kincaid can't even imagine, and Dawson Knox, who's fine, probably won't ever get to. It's hard to sit there and quantify it, to just lay it out for everybody and say, hey, this guy has made a difference, and here is the statistic to prove it. It's just, what you see on film from him, and it's been so good. It is so different then, virtually not just Bills tight ends. I can't think of a tight end around the league I've watched who's blocked like this on a regular basis. So I know he's got 3 catches, 1 touchdown. He's a fun story, but he has really changed / improved a whole lot of what the Bills want to do, especially in the running game. And when you combine that with the fact that you can put him on the field as a receiver, or you can put him on the field in what might look like a heavy set with 3 tight ends and still be enough of a threat as a receiver that defenses have to honor that, it's arguably one of the best tight end moves the Bills have made under Brandon Beane, including adding Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Through 3 games, look, it might not last like that all year long. And there was a play against the Dolphins where he pulled in the 3rd quarter, and one of their more reserved defensive linemen, Matthew Butler, I think the player's name is, just hammered him. Like, Hawes came around the corner, I think, expecting to get a push, and Butler was like, I'm not taking this anymore, and just knocked him right on his backside. It actually blew up the play. I think Cook got 1 yard on the play. So, maybe defensive linemen have figured something out against Jackson Hawes, but through 3 games, when you think about drafting a blocking tight end, what are you going to get out of this? The Bills have gotten 100% and then some of what you possibly could have expected from Jackson Hawes. Well, like I said, one of Brandon Beane's better draft picks in a day 3 situation, and this is a guy who's hit on a whole bunch of them. All right, one more thing I want to get to here. 3rd down defense, at least before the break. I got a whole half hour left. I got a lot more things to get to. Bills' 3rd down defense was not very good against the Ravens, was great against the Jets, held the Jets to 0 for 11, but then was not very good again against Miami. Now, Sean McDermott on Friday, when he wanted to talk about 3rd down defense, wanted to point out that the Bills forced Miami into a lot of 3rd downs, which, is good work on 1st and 2nd down. Miami had 15 3rd downs in this game. They converted 10 of them. I tend to kind of roll my eyes at that, because if we're going to talk about how great the Bills defense was in that game, does that mean the Jets defense the week before was great? Because they forced the Bills into 8 3rd downs in the first half. Actually, 9. 8 of them were 3rd and long. Did anyone say anything about how great the Jets defense was the week before? I don't think so. The Jets lost that game. The Bills won this game. That certainly frames things differently. But I don't really want to hear about how great the Bills defense was on 1st and 2nd down, even if it's accurate. With the 3rd downs, the Dolphins, I thought, had a really good game. People will a lot of time look at NFL stuff and say, well, this team was 10 of 15 on 3rd down. Ergo, your defense must be bad. Sometimes it's just simply that the other team had a good day or a good plan or both. And I think Miami had that against the Bills. Number one, I thought Tua had his best game I've ever seen him have in terms of being able to create out of the pocket, create in situations where the passing game was not on schedule. Specifically, I'm thinking of that 3rd and long throw to Tyreek Hill at the end of the first half that eventually led to a touchdown. But he also had a scramble for a 1st down. He distributed the ball properly on 3rd downs. It's a big reason why the Dolphins converted so many of them, because I thought Tua had a really good game. On top of that, I thought Mike McDaniel's game plan of using speed to exploit Trey White a couple times was a benefit. So this was a game to me where I think you got to, the Bills have 3rd down problems. We'll address that in a second here. But I think you got to start by just tipping your cap to the Dolphins. I think they played a really good game on 3rd downs against the Bills. And that's just going to happen. The other guys get paid too. And in this case, the other guys have one of the better receiver combos in the NFL. So those guys are going to cause you problems. And the Dolphins did. Just golf clap and move on. So I think this one game to me is not something that I'm going to walk away from and say, this is a problem for the Bills that needs to be worried about. But when you combine it with the Bills being 29th on 3rd down defensively last year, when you look at this season and the 2 non-Jets games, and keep in mind the Jets offensively are 30th in the NFL on 3rd down, in part because they went 0 for 11 against the Bills. But regardless, this is a defense or an offense that seems to have their own problems on 3rd down. If you take that game out, the Bills in the other 2 games have allowed 16 1st downs on 26 3rd down opportunities. That's ridiculously bad. The worst team in the league last year was just over 50%. 16 to 26 is closer to 60. And the Bills last year, remember, they were 29th in the league on 3rd downs. That was giving up 43% of other teams' third down opportunities. If you include the Jets game this year, through 3 games, all 3 included, the Bills' defense so far has given up 43% of third downs. So even with an 0 for 11 gold mine against the Jets, this defense statistically has not improved an iota from last year. Now, how do you get better? Well, number one of the reasons the Jets were 0 for 11 on third down is that you got circa 2020 Joey Bosa. He was fantastic. 6 pressures on 16 pass attempts I had him down for in that game. If you get that guy more often, your third down defense is going to get a lot better really fast. That guy did not show up against the Dolphins. He was okay, same as in the Ravens. There were some pressures, but was not great. So if you can get that Joey Bosa to show up, that'll solve a whole other group of problems on third down. In addition, maybe first-round pick Max Hairston comes back healthy enough to where he can have an impact later in the year. Dorian Strong had a decent opener, decent enough to maybe he's an option at corner to improve your secondary. Cole Bishop, hopefully, will improve as the season goes on. So there are reasons to be optimistic about the Bills on third down and that it'll improve. Maybe the most important of which is that it would be hard to get worse. But there are reasons to think that this third down issue will not be a season-long issue. But the one thing I'll say about it is right this second, even with an 0 for 11 in week 2 against the Jets, the Bills defense has not gotten any better on third down statistically or by the eye check, even if I think the Dolphins also had a pretty good game against Buffalo on Thursday night. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back here, I want to talk about the Tom Brady dilemma. Is he creating a conflict of interest in the NFL? Is he involved in one? Does it matter? We'll talk about that after this. You're watching the Endgame right here on Rock 1. By the way, we are doing fall colors today, orange and red in the room for September 22nd, which I assume is got to be close to the beginning of actual fall. I can look this up. Meteorological fall. Thrilling television, let me tell you. See, that I don't want to just say that it's fall, and because I'll get yelled at by Eric Snyder later on. He'll remind me that it's not really fall or whatever it is. Let's see. Meteorological fall. What day is it this year? Oh, wait, did it start September 1st? No way. Let's see. First day of fall. I'll go with that. It was not September 1st. I know that. Or not the day that I'm talking about here. Let me see. Yep. Fall actually started at 2:19 p.m. today. I knew I had the right day. So there you go. Red and orange today for the beginning of fall. Now, would not be a fall in America without some conversation of Tom Brady. And most of it's been about winning football games. Then it was about retiring for a long time. Then it was about still winning football games. Now it's about Tom Brady, the broadcaster, and specifically Tom Brady, also the owner. Because I think most people saw, but if you didn't see, last weekend during the Raiders game, because he's a minority owner for the Raiders, he was shown on TV wearing a headset in the coach's booth as if he was an assistant coach working for the team. The conflict of interest is created because he's also a Fox broadcaster, and game broadcasters routinely, and this has been going on for decades, prior to a game will get special access to the team so they can, present unique information, give the viewers things they didn't know, make the broadcast attractive. This is beneficial to the NFL because obviously the more interesting the broadcast is, the more people watch, the more money the NFL can get. So the NFL is happy to provide these broadcasters with information they won't provide to beat writers or some other media. So when Tom Brady does these interviews, he, in theory, is getting inside information that no one else would know that he could then, in theory, walk right back to the Raiders coaching staff and help them out with. For example, the Tom Brady this week was the broadcaster on the Bears game, and that's who the Raiders play next week. So the big question is Tom Brady, creating a conflict of interest? Is it wrong? Should the NFL do anything? Well, what the NFL has already said is that Tom Brady, when he does these interviews with teams before games, that he can't be at the facility, that he's got to be doing all these interviews virtually. So I don't see a problem here, because as long as Tom Brady's not at the facility and can't randomly come upon an iPad that has third down defensive plans on it, I don't think Tom Brady's going to get anything of use from Zoom interviews. Even though the coaches and players who are involved in these interviews are, in theory, giving Tom Brady things that other media don't have, these guys are certainly plenty comfortable when it comes to what they say to the media. It's not like Tom Brady can trick Andy Reid or even Ben Johnson, who's in his first year as the head coach of the Bears, into providing information that might help the Raiders. I mean, these guys do media press conferences weekly, more than once a week. They know how to speak in front of a camera without giving anything away. So the idea that Tom Brady is going to get on a Zoom and like magically hypnotize coaches and players to suddenly provide information that'll help the Raiders, to me, seems like much ado about nothing. You know, it's kind of like the sky is falling opinion of this. And speaking of that, Diana Rossini, who is a great insider, works for The Athletic, wrote a column over the weekend talking about what the concerns are for Tom Brady. And it read like, here's everything that could potentially go wrong, even if these things aren't necessarily reasonably likely. Including one owner who thought that, you know, Tom Brady would be able to take whatever information that he was getting from players and coaches and run it back to his team. There's also a suspicion or a belief that there are other people who are working for Fox who are allowed to go to team sites, team headquarters, and talk to teams before a game, and that they might get some information which they can then turn around and give to Tom Brady. First of all, are these staffers like guys who've been in the NFL? Because if they're TV people, they're not going to walk out in the field and be like, looks like they're running cover 6 on third down all the time. Wow, look at the linebacker shading over the guard there. They're not going to pick up on these things. And B, media don't get to watch the team part of practice anyway, generally. Those portions of the practice are closed and certainly can be closed if teams want them to be. So teams have ample opportunity to make sure Tom Brady doesn't get any more information than a reporter like me or, you know, some other beat reporter around the country. So I don't see why people would be concerned. I see why. I don't think it's reasonable for people to be concerned about Tom Brady cheating, doing something that's below board to help the Raiders out. Because the teams that he's dealing with have more than enough opportunity and ability to prevent him from gaining any advantage. The people who are the losers in this, the problem here, you know, when you look at conflict of interest, you think, well, this is a problem for the NFL. I don't think the NFL cares. And if the NFL did, they would have done something about it by now. The people who are losing in this are Fox, because they're paying $20 million or whatever to Tom Brady for a guy who can't get the same amount of information that every other NFL analyst who goes to games can get. Because when he talks to a team, he has to do it virtually. And you have to believe that the guys he's talking to are not being as open as they would be for Greg Olsen or Tony Romo or anyone else who is not also an owner of a football team. So to me, the only loser, the only person who has a problem with this is Fox and the viewers of Fox by extension, because they're getting a broadcaster that doesn't have access to the same amount of information that all the other broadcasters would have. At the end of the day, it's not a big deal. I mean, you know, Fox didn't sign Tom Brady because he knows the Buccaneers, you know, secondary really well. They signed Tom Brady because his name is Tom Brady. And they just want to put him on TV. If they were concerned about his broadcasting skill, they might have, you know, had him practice broadcasting first before they hired him. But it doesn't matter to Fox. They just want the name. And they believe that all of you out there watching the game will watch simply because of Tom Brady. Most of you are going to watch the game because of the game. Tom Brady doesn't hurt the name. So I don't think anybody's really losing when it comes to, you know, Fox and the viewers. Although if anybody is losing, that's where I think you know, put the little marker on. It's where you put the red pin in of who's losing in this. And again, the NFL knows very well what's going on. I mean, this is the most paranoid league in America. I mean, the things that we as media cannot talk about or record on camera are lunacy at times to the normal person. But to NFL head coaches and to front offices and team executives, this is priceless golden information that you can't share anywhere. So in this league, which believes that any possible extra piece of information can totally change a season, if they really thought Tom Brady was a problem, they would have done something more about it by now. And again, I'll go back to obviously what I said before. The NFL has a vested interest in getting people to watch. So if Tom Brady's name helps people watch, it's certainly a benefit to them to where, maybe they would look past some sort of issue when it comes to Tom Brady helping out the Raiders. But again, I still think that despite the NFL's naked avarice for every single dollar they can possibly milk out of the American public, if this was a real problem, they would have done something about it before. I don't think it's a real problem. Again, because the teams know full well how to deal with this problem. They deal with it every day when they talk to all of us in the media. Let's talk about another problem. This one was kind of a surprise, to me at least. Syracuse football was fined $25,000 by the ACC today for faking injuries in their game against Clemson. $25,000, and they got a reprimand for whatever that's worth. Now, the funny thing about this Syracuse faking injury thing is that I went looking for the video of the play where the alleged faking occurred. The ACC had said it happened with 9:23 to go in the fourth quarter. So I go looking for video about Syracuse faking injuries, and the first thing I see is a highlight from their first game of the year against Tennessee in a first half situation where injuries were faked. So this is not the first time Syracuse has done this. This is not the first time that Syracuse football players have been, faking to the degree that it certainly, caught a raised eyebrow from someone watching the game. And the video that I saw of Syracuse in the Tennessee game looks like some of the worst injury faking you've ever seen. I mean, it's a late first half play. Tennessee gets the ball down around the 10-yard line. They're running hurry up. They're about to snap the ball again. And then the corner closest to the sideline just kind of falls down like he's in the mood for a nap. He does grab his hamstring. My hamstring. Now, not surprisingly, in this game, he goes down near the Syracuse sideline. And there's actually another player a little further on the field away from this corner who also looks like he wants to go down, but when he sees the guy on the outside beat him to it, he's like, no, I'm good. Stands back up. This was week 1 against Tennessee. There weren't any fines for that game. Now, there's a little bit of video that Clemson, when I eventually found it, it's equally as bad. Now, look, Fran Brown has been good for Syracuse football, by and large. The team is 3-1. They're off to a good start, at least record-wise, coming off a year where they were excellent, went to a bowl. Everything is pointed up for Syracuse football. This does not look good. I mean, faking injuries is not something that every team in the world does, but at both the NFL and the college level, there have been a number of times where myself and other football fans have kind of squinted an eye at something's going on and saying, are you really hurt? Or are you just using this to help your team out? The Clemson quarterback called Syracuse out for it after the game. He wasn't even angry about it. He just kind of said, yeah, it looks bad. I'm paraphrasing for sure, but if you're Fran Brown, you're trying to, build a program, build a reputation, you don't need to do this. Your team's good enough already. You haven't looked great this year. Tennessee kind of spanked you, and your other wins are Colgate and UConn in overtime, and then a Clemson program having a terrible season. So this has not been a great start for the Syracuse football team. Even if they're 3-1, don't resort to this. Be better than this. Now, Fran Brown got asked about it today, and his response was, I don't want to take things away from my guys about the win. If the administration makes a decision, that's what we're going to go by. So he didn't even directly address it. Look, this is not the ACC or some conference overstepping their bounds. These faked injuries looked ridiculously bad, even for faked injuries. And the fact that I looked for the video of what you did this week and found a video of what you did 3 weeks ago makes it even worse. So for what Fran Brown has done so far at Syracuse, for what he's accomplishing, for where he's moving this program, he's got to be better. This cannot, again, faking injuries is something teams do. If you're going to do it, be way better at it, because right now you're terrible at it. So bad that it's the first time I've ever heard of a team getting fined for faking injuries, because you have to, if you're going to fine a team for doing something a lot of teams do, you better have it cold. And this video is bad enough that I can't blame the ACC for getting on Syracuse about it. All right, time for one of our favorite weekly segments. It is, you see this? Rachel Leibert's going to join us here in studio. And what we do is every single week we kind of go through the things that kind of got our attention over the weekend. And, Rachel, you're going to be very excited for my version of, you see this? Because it's one that should be near and dear to your heart there for sure. So I'll go first since I already sold it. But I know you saw Cleveland sports having themselves a weekend.
I did.
Cleveland Guardians, I'll start with them. This is an awesome story for people who don't know. The Guardians were under 500 early in September. Like under 5, not even a question to have a chance to make the playoffs. They win 15 of 16 games. They lost yesterday, but they won 15 of 16. They sit right now 1 game out of the division. They are currently tied for the last wild card spot in one of the more ridiculous rallies you will ever see in a baseball season to get back into a playoff race. Now, final week of the season, they got the Tigers, this week? Or is it?
This week, I believe, yes.
So that is the first, there's only 2 series left. So is it the first series or the second series? Do you know off the top of your head?
It might be the first, and it might be their final homestand series, maybe?
Well,
I'm not positive.
They got three and then a different 3 at some point. Mm-hmm. But regardless, you're a Cleveland girl. So give me the gauge of the excitement right now in Cleveland about the Guardians.
A lot of excitement. It's funny because I mean, when they were down 15 games, I stopped paying attention. I mean, people would ask me, how are the Guardians doing? And I'm like, I honestly couldn't really tell you. I knew they weren't doing great. And then I just kind of stopped paying attention. So this is great. I mean, I feel like the Guardians, you kind of pay attention to them. And then once the playoffs happen, they get something going. It's happened like the last few years. So I'm excited to see if this happens again as a Cleveland girl.
What's the optimism about Cleveland's ability? As I'm trying to redo your shot here, by the way, I'm sorry. There's a button I hit that I found out did something today. Anyway, what's the optimism level? Because it's Cleveland, which is, maybe the most fatalistic sports city in America, about the Guardians finishing this off.
I'm optimistic. I mean, I think you have to be optimistic. I mean,
you don't have to be. Trust me, you do not have to be. There are a lot of people who are not optimistic about it.
Yeah, no, I'm optimistic. I think, like I said, I feel like the Guardians tend to rally in certain moments, at least in the last few years, like going into the playoffs. So I'm optimistic. I mean, it's my team, so I have hope.
And then on top of that, it's not just the Guardians, it's the Browns. Pulling a big W out of nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah, that was fun.
So I'm going to admit I watched 0.0% of that game. Mm-hmm. I know I saw what happened at the end, obviously, with the field goal and everything. But to the Browns' credit, it was only 10-0 at the end.
Exactly.
So I'm assuming the defense did something correctly for the majority of that game. So give me how the heck did the Browns win that?
The Browns, obviously the Browns' offense is the issue. There's just no offense. They cannot get the ball down the field to really save their lives. But the defense, I think for the last 5 years, the defense is what saves the Browns every time. The Browns are in games because the defense. But yeah, yesterday they blocked a field goal, so that was kind of a momentum shift. Then they went down, and then they got a field goal. The Browns kicked a field goal 10-3, and then interception puts them down on the 5-yard line on Green Bay's next drive. So then that sets them up for another touchdown. So then it's 10-10, and then they go down. Green Bay has a chance to take the win or go ahead. They block the field goal, and then the kid who missed a field goal in the first game to win it in week 1, he's I think he might be a rookie. He's from Syracuse, actually.
Yeah.
Missed it.
The guy who needs more vowels in his last name.
Yes, that guy. He ended up kicking the game winner. So it was crazy. I mean, it was 10-0 with 4 or 5 minutes left. The Browns scored 10 points in 37 seconds.
That to me is the story. How is it only 10-0?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's been saying Green Bay, they got Micah Parsons now. Green Bay is this huge Super Bowl contender. Not saying they're not, but to lose to the Browns doesn't help your case.
No, it does not. It hurts your case quite a bit, even on the road. I mean, the 10-0 part of it, look, turnovers happen, blocked field goals, those things do happen. the reason Green Bay lost this game is because it was only 10-0 at the end, and they left Cleveland hanging around.
Yeah, exactly.
But regardless, if we rank Cleveland sports weekends,
Number 1,
a week 3 win, and the continuation of the Guardians rally, is this in the top 5? I know I'm really like knocking, you know, but
I mean, of recent times,
Yes.
yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
that's scary.
Browns' first win of the year, and it's the top moment.
It was a great win though. It was a cool win.
Great win.
All right, what did you see over the weekend that you liked quite a bit?
Are you tapped into the track and field world at all?
I mean, I'm tapped into everything to a degree.
Okay.
This is probably the lowest degree, but go ahead.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
I love watching track and field every time.
Really?
Yes, it's so fun to me. Like, I mean, really just the track aspect of track and field. I mean, I like watching other stuff. But I mean, last year with the Olympics, like sprints, and I just love watching it. It's so fun. Anyway, I'm sure you've heard the name Noah Lyles.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the World Championships were this past week. They happen every 2 years. Noah Lyles won the 200-meter sprint, his 4th time winning it to tie Usain Bolt's record of winning 4. So it was, I mean, Noah Lyles, if you think about last year at the Olympics, I don't know if you watched any of that at all, but everybody kind of was on him for being like the cockiest athlete they've ever seen in their lives. His entrance when he comes out onto the track, he's jumping around, going crazy, and everyone's like, he has to win, because if he doesn't, this looks ridiculous. But he backs it up every single time. He did it again, like this time. It ties Usain Bolt's records. In his like post-race interviews, he's telling people, I can't wait for 2027 so I can be the record holder for 5th and like 5 wins, the most in the world. And then he won, the U.S. men's team won the 4x100 relay, and he was the anchor. And you have to watch the video if you haven't seen it, but I mean, it's like a close race, and then the baton goes to him, and he just takes off. Like it's just the whole thing to me, because everybody says he's so his whole personality is so cocky, and he's so corny in the way he presents himself, and just talking about like, I'm the best in the world and whatever. But then he backs it up every single time, and it's so fun to watch. And I love watching track and field just because of athletes like this that are just so good. You just watch it and you just can't even believe what you're seeing. But I mean, yeah, he's always fun to watch, and it's like one of my favorite parts of the Olympics every year is watching him and watching track and field in general.
The Olympics is awesome, obviously, you know, for 1,000 reasons. Give me your, like, how much track watching do you do? Is this like a regular?
No, this
monthly?
is like a regular. I mean, when it's like the big events like this, I pay attention. I mean, I think out of the Olympics, track and field, I mean, when the Olympics come around every 4 years, I think I'm most logged into track and field. Don't know why. I just find it so entertaining. Like, it's just so fun to just see these people, like, it's just insane. But now Noah Lyles has yet to beat Usain Bolt's record in the actual races, like time-wise.
Yes.
But he's just tied for the amount of golds that he's won. So,
which is still cool.
Oh, it's
I mean, Usain
so cool,
Bolt
yeah.
was probably I mean, the thing with sprinters that's weird, unlike other sports, is that you can, at some point you can be like, wow, you know, do you like Barry Bonds or Aaron Judge or Mark McGwire or Babe Ruth? You can kind of compare them all. With sprinters, like, the most recent guy is always the best guy because he's the fastest guy, you know?
Exactly.
So to compare Lyles to Bolt is not fair on a level. But I'm with you on, if you got a guy who talks trash and you back it up,
It's
I'm
fun to
entertained by
watch.
that.
Normally I'd be like, who is this guy? Like, what's he doing? Why? Like, you got to be a little more humble. But no, he backs it up every time. And it's just like, okay, well, I guess you can do that when you're literally the fastest man in the world.
I hate to go NASCAR hater on you, but isn't it just people running in a circle all the time? Like, I don't get, like, I can appreciate track, you know, especially when you got a local person want to see. I can appreciate there's someone that I want to watch to win one event. That's cool. To just sit there and watch an entire meet is not generally my preferred idea of afternoon entertainment.
But have you ever sat down and watched? See, so you would you rather watch NASCAR or track and field?
NASCAR.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the runners can't like have an accident where they flip and like body parts fly everywhere. You know,
never know. I mean, they could.
Well, we're not talking about that now. Come on. But yeah, I mean, look, I can. The other thing too, I've watched a lot of NASCAR. So the other thing about NASCAR that I like is that you can get into like having to fix the car up. You know, like we don't have to talk about Noah Lyles getting a track bar adjustment. You know, or like what's his restrictor plate set for? You know, it's just the dude. You know, trains really hard and runs really fast. Don't get me wrong, it's awesome. But like in terms of an entertainment product, I'm just look. Hey, I'm happy to find more sports to watch that I like. I've gotten into soccer in the last 12 years. 20 years ago, me would not have said that. So if you can sell me on track and field, I am all ears ready to listen.
I think you should sit down and try. I mean, I honestly, like, I don't sit here and watch every track and field event that's
Right.
happening when it's just like the big stage, like the World Championships,
Yes.
or this is when I'm like more into it. But I think I think you would enjoy it if you sat down. I mean, the thing about NASCAR for me is it's so much longer, and I think that's really lost me. I think I mean, even though some of these races are long, it's still, I mean, I don't know why. It's just fun to just watch it.
It is instant gratification, you know, because like the NASCAR races are 500 miles, not 100 meters. So you get that over in 10 seconds. Like, ooh, I saw a winner.
Exactly.
You know, I can see that. Where, you know, you sit and watch a NASCAR race for 3 hours, it's one winner. You watch 3 hours of track, and you get what, like 50 winners, something like that. So
yeah, exactly.
I can see you there. Okay, we might bring this back at some point. The track discussion. I mean, like I said, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want more sports to watch? You know. So all right. We are done for today. Be back on Thursday. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for Rachel for being in. Remember to check out BKL Nightly tonight. We're back at 8:30 tonight. Be updated on the Bills. Until then, I'm Thad Brown for Rachel Albert. We'll see you later.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 on demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.